President Trump is issuing an ominous warning ahead of a ruling that will determine whether he overstepped his authority in imposing tariffs. Trump argued in part of a longer social media post yesterday that if the courts strike down his tariff policy, quote, it would be impossible to ever recover or pay back those massive sums of money and honor. It would be 1929 all over again, a Great Depression, he wrote.
Hey, like she said, the warning, all right? Ezekiel 3, in verse 17, it says, Son of man, I have made thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. Therefore hear the word at my mouth and give them warning from me. All right, Shalom. I want to give all the praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Rakah Quadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who taught me this truth. Shalom to the hopeful elect. I'm back with another quick lesson through the Holy Spirit, the Rakah Quadash. And this statement that Trump made is what pretty much sparked this quick lesson. All right, this is from CNN, came out a couple of days ago. But the headline, it says, Trump warns of another Great Depression if court strikes down tariffs. Okay, so Trump has been constantly letting you know that this economy is soon to collapse. All right, and that's no longer a mystery. All right, we all know that this current economic system is soon to fall. All right, and this is what we're warning, okay, you Israelites of, that continue to put your trust in this system, into this economy. All right, eventually, all right, it's bound to fall. And exactly what they're doing right now, all right, is that they're continuously squeezing the life out of the so-called American people till there's none left. All right, prepare for harder times, prepare for things to get even worse, as we've been warning you. Okay, price hikes, hyperinflation, the cost of living is all about to get even more ridiculous, right?
Waiting for it to strike midnight, August 7th. Then he posted on Truth Social. It's midnight. Billions of dollars in tariffs are now flowing into the United States of America. All caps, exclamation mark. After 4 delays in 4 months and a dizzying array of adjustments, President Trump's sweeping tariffs took on over 90 countries, took effect this week, with most foreign goods now facing a baseline 10% tariff and an average tariff rate of over 17%, which is the highest since the Great Depression. So far, Trump's tariffs have only moderately contributed to inflation, with many companies that import the goods absorbing the cost for now. But a lot of companies have signaled that price hikes aren't far off, and some of them are already starting. How might this all look in a real person's life? Well, we've got a real person. To answer that, let's check back in with our old friend Betty and her son Bobby. Bobby's gotten a lot older since then, but we'll update the graphic one of those days. At the moment, Betty has 150,000 miles on her car, but she has to act fast if she wants to buy a new one, because while prices haven't shot up just yet, Cox Automotive, a firm that works with automakers, expects the sticker price of a new model to increase anywhere from 4 to 8% this year alone. Now think about this. The car, if you don't own a house, the car is probably the most expensive thing you own. 4 to 8% on a new car is a big deal. If you're thinking, Betty, my friend, just buy American. It's a little more complicated than that. Even Ford, which produces 80% of its cars in America, has already paid $1 billion in tariff fees and raised prices on a few models that are made in Mexico. So looks like Betty might have to start walking a little bit more. Now, some new sneakers for those walks might be nice. Plus, Betty's son Bobby has aspirations of making the soccer team this year. But high tariffs on countries like Vietnam and India are weighing heavily on the clothing and textile industry. Adidas, Nike, Puma have all announced that they expect to hike prices for their sportswear. The Yale Budget Lab estimates that in the short term, shoe prices are going to shoot up 40% and apparel prices 38%. Bobby's soccer cleats from last year have a big hole in the toe, but they're going to have to do for now. And with a few less exercise outfits, Betty has to do more laundry. Bad news, Procter & Gamble, which makes Tide detergent and tons of other home goods, said in late July it would be raising prices by single-digit percentages after saying in April that the company was doing whatever it could to prevent price hikes. Betty is also an aspiring home chef, as you know, despite how Bobby may feel about her cooking. But even in the kitchen, she feels the pinch of these tariffs on basics like olive oil. often imported from Europe. That's also expected to cost more. And the Brazilian coffee she likes is going to run a few extra dollars because we now have a 50% tariff on Brazil. Worse yet, she can hardly afford to drink away the pain. Tariffs are threatening to raise the price on everything from Irish whiskey to wine from Spain, even on the aluminum that comes from Mexico and is used to make beer cans. For years, this interconnected global economy got Betty the basic consumer goods and cheap prices that she's enjoyed. The president has had his say. That's not going to happen any longer. All right, I want to talk a little more about this, more on how Trump's newest tariffs are going to affect you and me. I'm joined by Caleb Silver, editor-in-chief of Investopedia. Let's go over and sit down and talk about how some of these tariffs are going to affect people. The first point we made, Caleb, is that not everybody's passed them on just yet. Scott Bessent was on TV saying the importer will pay it, and then it's a choice as to whether they pass it on or not. The companies can only make that choice for so long.
Yeah, and we've heard from companies like Walmart who have said, look, the margins are so thin in retail, we have no choice but to pass a lot of those costs on, and they will. But it does depend on where the product is actually finished. That's a big deal. And who's going to pay that tariff? We've heard reports from Goldman Sachs and others that companies and countries are picking up the bill right now before the goods get to the United States. That's not going to last long because it's going to be a trade-off, Ali, between profit margins, which are so important to public companies, and how much they can afford in terms of price elasticity and how much we're willing to pay as consumers before we tap out.
So the conversation about profit margins, we're talking about Procter & Gamble or Best Buy or Nike or Walmart. That's very different from small businesses in America that import things.
Right.
They have no lobbyists. They have no say in the matter.
Right. And there's the president also got rid of the de minimis exemption for products that are $800 or less. So many small businesses depending on those smaller imports just to run their small businesses, whether it's components or finished products. So a lot of people, consumers, small businesses, big enterprises kind of left out here wondering what's going to happen. And the reality is prices are going up.
Let's talk about how you hedge against this. We were just talking about car.
Yeah. So again, we're hearing all this information being said. But what exactly does that mean for this economy, right? This is Zephaniah 1:10. It says, and it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord, Yahweh Shemel Washai, there should be the noise of a cry from the fish gate, and a howling from the second, and great crashing from the hills. You know, so like I like to do is go to the parallels, right, of how that could apply in a modern setting, right? Dealing with what we're dealing with today, right? So it says Zephaniah 1:10 and 11 is part of a prophecy of judgment against Jerusalem, but the imagery can easily parallel an economic collapse in modern setting, right? Let's read this. So it says the noise of a cry from the fish gate. Historical context: the fish gate was a major entry point into Jerusalem, where fish traders from Tyre and elsewhere brought goods. The modern parallel: this could symbolize distress coming from commercial entry points, ports, trade hubs, and markets where imported goods flow. If trade routes collapse or imports dry up, the first cries today would be from supply chain choke points, ports, shipping companies in large markets, which is going on now. All right, and how these tariffs are affecting everything, the trade, the imports, you know. It says, let's read the second part, Zephaniah 1:11, how you inhabitants of Maktesh, for all the merchant people are cut down, all they that bear silver are cut off, right? So it says here, howling from the second. The second likely refers to the second quarter, quote unquote, of Jerusalem, an important residential and commercial district. Modern parallel: this could point to the ripple effects hitting major businesses, district or financial sectors after trade disruptions, when workers, shop owners, and mid-level commerce start to suffer, right? And I'm going to play a video on that, on how that's applying exactly right now. It says, a great crashing from the hills. Historical context: the hills around Jerusalem held the homes of the wealthy and elite. A crashing, quote unquote, there meant the judgment would hit even those at the top, all right? Because everybody's feeling this right now. Modern parallel, in an economic collapse, the shock eventually reaches the rich and powerful. Stock market crashes, real estate collapses, investment portfolios tanking, the quote high places of finance fall too. It says, how you inhabitants of Maktesh, historical context, Maktesh was a market district in Jerusalem, possibly a valley-like depression where merchants traded heavily. The name means mortar, possibly alluding to a low place surrounded by walls, like a bowl. Modern parallel, this points directly to the commercial/financial centers, Wall Street, major banking hubs. When markets crash, those who profit from buying, selling, and investing howl, quote unquote, because their lifeblood trade is destroyed. See? Let's make that point about the, as we read here, in the modern parallel, it said this could point to the ripple effects hitting major business districts or financial sectors after trade disruptions when workers, shop owners, and mid-level commerce start to suffer, right?
Cookware manufacturer hundreds of thousands of dollars.
The products that we manufacture.
President Trump's tariffs are likely going to cost this Tennessee cookware manufacturer hundreds of thousands of dollars.
The products that we manufacture are almost entirely made out of steel and aluminum. As you might imagine, the steel and aluminum tariffs affect it very significantly. Basically, all of our input costs are going up by at least 50%.
But Heritage Steel believes there could be some advantages.
For right now, it is a tough pill to swallow, but I guess it's just everyone is having a tough pill to swallow, right? So just how much does it affect us? How much does it affect the market overall?
Heritage Steel imports about 75% of the raw materials it uses. So the tariffs affect the price of the parts, not the full product itself. And because the company manufactures its products here in the US, that's a smaller tariff bill to worry about compared to other companies. One of the owners, Danny Henn, says their competitors will likely see tariffs on their entire products, which could skyrocket their prices.
That is my working theory. I am not an international trade expert, nor am I an expert on the inner workings of all of our competitors' businesses. From my understanding of how this is all meant.
Now, he's a business owner and he's pretty much banking on his competitors, everybody around him, to go out of business or raise their prices to where they're not as competitive to where their company is leaving their prices are. But at the same time, guys, he's admitting that these Trump tariffs are destroying his business. He's admitting that, it's causing the products that they produce, all the steel and aluminum products that they produce, is causing the prices to skyrocket. But hey,
see, so this is everything that we just read here. It's all happening. This is the parallel in prophecy. Okay? When workers, shop owners, and mid-level commerce start to suffer, the people are suffering. The price of everything is going up. Okay?
let him finish talking. I'm gonna let the video speak for itself.
To be implemented, there are some potential advantages down the line for us.
The company used to source even more of its materials from U.S. vendors, but Henn says they're no longer in business.
There is no U.S. supply chain for these inputs that we need. And so it does feel a bit punitive, where we're trying to still do the right thing, keep jobs here, keep manufacturing here, but a lot of these costs still fall on us.
They're also partially falling to the consumer, with the manufacturer making the decision to increase prices by about 15%.
It was a combination of looking at the base economics, what our input costs are going up by, seeing how much that affects our margins, and then seeing how much we can potentially offset while still providing a really good price point.
And this very trade war is destroying so many businesses, guys. I can bring you guys countless and countless of videos of people like this, companies like this, manufacturing plants just like this, who are threatened to go out of business because of these tariffs, guys. When you talk about raising and putting a 50% tariff on steel and aluminum and many other raw products that we get from other different countries, imported from other different countries around the world, what do you think is going to happen, guys? Yeah, of course they got to raise the prices. And guess what? As they raise the prices, you're going to have less in sales and you're going to have less money coming to this business, eventually leading this business to end up shutting down. That's just the reality, guys. Do y'all not know that?
That's just the reality, man. Okay? People are suffering. Okay, Ecclesiastes 12:3, and that in the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, all right, those who watch over the economy, all right, your stockbrokers, all right, your investors, your financial gurus, okay, they all know that inevitable day is coming where this current economy is about to crash, it's about to collapse. All right, the writing is on the wall, so to speak. In the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and the strong men bow themselves, and the grinders cease because there are few. All right, I did a few videos going into people complaining about the lack of work, can't find jobs. People are being fired, being replaced by AI. All right, people are applying for jobs that don't even exist. And the grinders cease because there are few, and those that look out of the windows be darkened, man. This is a very grim time for Babylon, man, for America, man. Okay? The outlook is grim. You see? But again, I wanted to do this quick lesson because it all parallels to the fall of this economy, right? Let's make one more point. We'll wrap it up here. I saw this one on the feed earlier today too. The average American is cooked, right?
I've had this conversation with my chat. I've had many clips of this go viral where I talk about how money doesn't hit the same as it used to. Even today, I said that $1 million isn't a lot. And what's crazy is people don't understand why I'm saying that. And the reason why I'm saying that is $1 million today, comparatively to what it was in the 1990s, $1 million today, $1 million in 1990s was the same as around $2.6 million of today. $1 million was enough where you could quit your job and live off it and live lavishly your entire life in the 1990s. Today, the average human life costs $3.3 million living modestly. $1 million doesn't even take care of a third of your life. And I think it's crazy how inflation has gotten so terrible that essentially what used to be expected of a normal life, which is, and I'm sure you guys all thought about this, when you think of a normal life, you think you work a job, you get a wife, you have 3 kids, you have a house, and you have a car, maybe even a dog. Nope, that's not the normal life anymore. The new life is you work until you're 70, you stay single, you live in a bachelor apartment, and then you die. There's a phrase that I often like saying, which is, life sucks and then you die. And with the current economy, it's exactly that. I think it's horrifying, and I hate to be doomer-pilled about this, but $1 million really doesn't hit like it used to. And I want to remind you guys, in the 1990s, a double cheeseburger at McDonald's
Bear with me 1 second.
was 75 cents. In 2025, it's $4.18.
Yeah. So, you can watch these videos. I just wanted him to make those points, but we'll just end it here. All right, it's all over, It's all done from here, man. All right, Zephaniah 1:14, the great day of the Lord, Yahweh Shemel Shai, is near, it hasteth greatly. All right, this thing is moving very fast. Even the voice of the day of the Lord, Yahweh Shemel Shai, the mighty man shall cry there bitterly. The day is a day of wrath, a day of trouble and distress, right? A day of wasteness and desolation, a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness, a day of the trumpet and alarm against the fenced cities and against the high towers. And I will bring distress upon men, and they shall walk like blind men, because they have sinned against the Lord, Yahweh Shemel Shai, and their blood shall be poured out as dust, and their flesh as dung. Neither shall their silver nor their gold be able to deliver them in the day of Yahweh Shemel Shai's wrath, but the whole land shall be devoured by the fire of his jealousy, for he shall make even a speedy riddance of all them that dwell in the land. So, as we know, eventually this place is about to get smoked by nuclear destruction, all right? But the Lord is going to eventually, cause this economy to collapse, all right? The money is going to have no meaning at that point, man. And we know the main objective from Trump is to bring in that digital system, man. Okay, so like I said earlier, he's been constantly letting you know that they're getting ready to collapse the system. All right, whatever they're going to do to get it done. All right, but they have to move forward, with that beast system and get rid of this dollar. All right, so all the signs are there. Shalom.